Yes.
I'd like to call this May 20 council. The first item we have is request for council action, 2109 budget amendments, 2110 modified grant contract project 1063 Remark Airfield, 2111 grant application Ohio Criminal Justice Service Police Department, 2112 accept grant body armor for the municipal court, 2113 accept donation of hand sanitizer for spray products, 2114 memorandum of understanding with Teamsters Local 436, 2115 expenditure for Lippman Inc. decorative lights for South Elmwood Bridge, 2116 job creation grant Miller Plating LLC, 2117 job creation grant Carlisle Brake and Friction Inc., 2118 MCRC temporary age restriction change, 2119 discussion opening of municipal pool, 2120 expenditure of $15,000 color renovation Uptown Park, and 2121 vehicle donation to Medina County Career Center from the police department. The next item we have is 2101, a then and now for Pioneer Technology Group for the municipal court. Nancy Abbott is with us, so if you could explain that.
Yes. Well, we had, as you know, we went through a conversion last year from our older case management system to Pioneer's Benchmark. And as part of that conversion, we had a list of deliverables. And I held out $56,943.90 for the completion of all those deliverables. Some of those deliverables couldn't possibly be done in 2019. One of them was the Ohio Courts Network, which is, we have to send all of our traffic and actually our criminal cases to the Ohio Supreme Court so they can be uploaded to BCI. That is currently being done. We are now looking at historical data that has to be uploaded. The second deliverable that couldn't be done until this year was our positive pay. And that is a check fraud program with Huntington Bank. The problem we're having now is everybody's working from home, and to get that done is taking a little longer than I thought it should, but I can't do anything about that. The third one was, a deliverable was, we needed to have multiple collection agencies, and that needed to be completed, and that has been completed. The final one, which is the biggest one, is our reconciliation that we're working with the state auditor with, and that's going to take several months. But anyway, I held back $56,943.90 from Pioneer until all these deliverables were delivered, which meant that we had a 2019 PO that I need to pay in 2020. The money is there without a problem. So I just need, I guess, the okay from City Council to say, okay, then and now is okay.
Thank you, Nancy. The one question I have is that there's a stamp on here that says partial 10,000. Was any of this 56,000 paid? Or is that the 10,000 you wanted to pay but you didn't?
That is correct. I didn't know about this past and then or then and now thing going on with City Council, so I sent over the PO with $10,000 to be paid back in whenever I sent the PO over, and Lily told me about having to present something to City Council. So I would like, to get 10,000 paid, and then
hold the rest.
The rest will get paid as the delivers come in.
Okay. All right. Does any council member have any questions on that? So we're going to pay $10,000 of the $56,000. And the emergency clause has been requested. Does anybody have any questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause.
So the motion is to pay 10,000 of the 56 with the emergency clause. Any further discussion?
I have one before. I mean, you can vote on that. I guess I don't care. But am I going to have to go through this every time I do another 10,000, or will this meeting tonight cover the $56,943.90?
Keith, how do you want that handled?
Well, as long as you don't want
Turn your mic on.
Okay, sorry. As long as you don't deem this necessary to come back to council, we can approve the purchase order now for the entire amount, the 56,943.90, to replace the one that was existed in 19, and then we'll just pay as Nancy authorizes.
Okay, does anybody have any problem doing that? If not, Jim, can you revise your motion to approve the full payment of the 56, and then Keith will pay it as Nancy requests?
I'll make a motion then to reissue a purchase order for the full
943.90
$390.
with the emergency clause.
I second that, which includes the emergency clause.
Okay, just to clarify, we're voting on to approve the entire amount with the emergency clause, and as Nancy needs the money, she'll talk to Keith, and Keith then will be able to release the money on an as-needed basis. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, everybody. Have
Thanks,
a good
Nancy.
meeting. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
The next item is 2038, the City Hall parking deck change order for stormwater detention location. Patrick?
Thank you. You may remember a while back when we were talking about our stormwater system for the parking deck. As planned, it was going to go on the west side of the lot adjacent to the federal office building. There was a desire of council to explore moving it to the east side of the lot adjacent to Sully's, where it would be underneath the driveway. And the result would allow us that land that's going to be developed by the CDC to be wider, a lot more area. We've been trying for a couple of months to get pricing from the contractor, and that did come in just on Friday. And I did forward it to council. And basically they're telling us that the total additive to move that would be $124,433.78. That was kind of shocking. I did email them today a lot of questions and bullet points that we need to discuss. They haven't gotten back to me. I guess my comment at this point, I don't think there's any way we can recommend moving ahead with the change order like that. It's just way out of the ballpark.
Thank you, Pat. And can you explain to council the numbers on the original breakdown once the bid was submitted and what was allocated towards this stormwater management system?
Okay, that was one of my questions to them. As you remember, when we bid it, it's just one number, 3.714 million. After it's awarded, they are required to give us what's called the schedule of values. This is how we pay them monthly. And so there's a number of items where they tell us what it's worth. For a stormwater system, that was $75,000. One of my questions to them is that the detention basin is obviously part of that. Is it the entire 75? There are some on-site drainage items too. Is that included in the 75? I didn't get clarification in time for the meeting, but I assume most of that 75,000 is the detention basin.
And my understanding is if we do not do the change order, we could make a change order to remove the requirement that they complete the stormwater management detention basin from the contract, and we would get a credit for that amount of money?
That's one of the options we discussed. Either the three options I see, either leaving it in place on the west side of the parking lot or the lot. That would be the least expensive. Or go ahead with a change order, certainly not this one, but maybe they come back with further information, drops it down. I don't see it dropping down very much. Or the third option is we negotiate with them to just non-perform this. You don't do it, we'll take over and we'll do it. I'm sure we could do that a whole lot cheaper than they could.
Questions from council? Bill?
Yeah, Patrick, how long would it take for you to do the planning work if we went ahead and bid it out, separately from this contract?
Well, as you remember, and I think it was included in my RCA, if we were going ahead with this, the city had work to do. We have to extend the storm sewer on Liberty from the intersection at Elmwood east to Sully's. We've already got that project designed and ready to go, so we would just have to kind of add this onto it. Their engineer has already designed what needs to be designed for this, so we can kind of just lump that on. The design portion, I guess, to sum it up, wouldn't take long. but we would have to do the numbers involved, the contract value, go through the whole standard public bidding process.
But if it's significantly cheap, if there's a possibility that it's significantly cheaper, it seems like it would be worth that extra time to do the bidding.
You're breaking up, Bill. I don't know if you have
Rebid
a
it, to
connection.
bid it.
You're breaking up. You're like freezing.
I think he's asking, is it, if the time is manageable, is it be a lot cheaper? And I think it probably would be. We're trying to put a number on it now. We've never actually put in one of these systems before. We've never done a parking deck
Can
like
you hear me now?
You're still breaking
Can
up.
you hear me?
You're probably going to reconnect because I don't know if something happened to your connection. But go ahead, Patrick.
Pardon me?
You're saying we load CPS costs for engineering design project.
That's correct, yeah.
Because we're going to get, I'm sure, something reasonable. In order to make a fair evaluation, we got to have numbers.
Correct. Law director mentioned, and he's correct, when we negotiate this, and that's why I mentioned negotiating the non-performance, CPS is likely going to have some costs involved already because they've had to design this system. So there's engineering and design costs. Plus they probably will want to throw in some other things. Greg recommended we need to know that before we make a final determination.
So what I'm hearing from you is we probably should hold this until the next meeting to get more information from them. But the way it's looking, depending on the information we receive and the information we have currently, it may be the best idea to do it on our own with the information we have today.
Yeah, as we sit here today, I think that's probably, if we're really want it on the east side of the parking lot, I think it would be cheaper us doing it in-house rather than them doing it, or not in-house, we'd have to bid it, but yeah. And I just did want to mention, obviously there's time involved here. I don't think this would interrupt the opening of the parking deck. To be honest with you, it's probably, by the time we go everything, it's going to be late summer, early fall before we do this project. The deck could be open and usable before that, but when we do this, there's probably going to be a couple weeks where that entrance would be affected, just so everyone knows where we're at.
Yeah, no, that's doable. Does anybody have a desire to keep it on the west side? Again, if we keep it on the west side, we have a smaller building on Liberty than moving it to the east side, which will give us to be able to do a larger building on Liberty. Does anybody desire to keep it on the west side?
You just answered one of the questions I had, John, to make sure that that's, so we could have the larger building on the property by moving the detention basin east. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
John, I just have one question with federal court. Have we ever got a definitive answer from them as far as how far that we could come down with the future building on Liberty between Sully's and the federal courthouse, of what they're comfortable with, if they had any objections? And the only reason I'm asking this is because if for some reason they say that, or by ordinance, we'd have to stay a certain amount away from the federal court, we might be better off just keeping it on the west side. Otherwise, yeah, no, I'd be in favor of putting this on hold and seeing if we can move it to the east side of the parking area or the property there. Thank you.
Patrick, do you have any update on that regarding the federal court? I think they put the fence up, so I think that's all they're going to do. But I don't know if you know more.
Yeah, we did get confirmation through an email from them that they're not going to have any objection to our proposed future project there.
Okay, thank you.
Patrick, hold on 1 second, John.
Yes, Mayor.
They did say they didn't want windows on the second level on that side, though, correct?
I believe that's correct. I'll
Right.
forward the email to everybody after the meeting here.
Right. That's my recall, President Coyne, is that they were okay with the structure next door, but they preferred not to have the windows on the upper level on the west side of our new building there.
All right, well, I mean, I think that's still maybe okay, depending on what's on that side, of course. If there's a need for windows, well, that could be a problem, but if there's 2 or 3 stories, if there's just one story without windows and a third and fourth story, if it goes that high, could have windows, that may be fine. But I guess we can confirm. But again, we're talking a substantial difference in the size of the building, which is, more rent, more revenue, more, income tax for the city. I think that's why the cost of this project is, in the long term, is far less than the benefit that could be gained by moving it. So, any other questions from council? So we're going to hold this until the next meeting, until we get more information from Mr. Patton from CPS, and he'll circulate the email around, and we can make a decision at the next finance meeting. Is that okay with you, Patrick?
Yeah. Yes, that'll work. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. The next item we have is 2109, a budget amendment. And this is from Keith.
Yes, sir. We had a budget hearing on May 13th, and during that hearing, you asked to do these reductions to carry forward. This is water office and water cash control. I turned it in on the 14th, and this is to make that official.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on that?
Move to approve.
Sorry, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
You opposed that, Jessica?
I was not opposed. I was just muted when I said it the first time.
Okay. All right, 2110, modified grant request for remarking of the airfield project 1063. Mr. Huber?
This would be Pat.
Oh, Patrick?
Thank you. Council may remember a while back, earlier this year, we were awarded a grant from the Ohio Department of Transportation, Department of Aviation. The grant total was $142,120. The project total was $149,600. And this was to remark the airfield. And on our end, we're also going to do some crack sealing. We bid the project, awarded it. And ironically, the day we were having our pre-construction meeting, we were notified by ODOT Aviation that due to the effects to the statewide budget of the coronavirus, there's a severe shortage, and we were to stop everything immediately. So we did. Since then, we've been notified and working with ODOT that they are going to honor all of our expenses to date. But everything else is essentially canceled. They haven't canceled it officially, but there'll be no work on it, so we won't actually get the project done this year. We put together our cost to date, and it was $50,812.50. Most of that is from design and construction by Delta Airport for the project, or design and engineering. And there's $13,781 from the contractor, his cost to date. So ODOT resubmitted a grant to us in their revised amount. I think we have to modify the previous grant agreement, or I don't know if we omit the previous grant agreement and enter into a new one, but that's where we are.
So my understanding is that we request to be reimbursed through the date that the expenses that we've incurred, but when it ever comes back online, we can continue with the same plans, but maybe a different grant.
Correct. They've told us it's unlikely the fiscal year 2020 will be able to fund it. We'll go back into the pot, so to speak, with other projects for fiscal year 2021, and they've notified all projects awarded this year that they'll be given priority for next year. Now, their fiscal year starts July 1st, so we're only talking a couple months away. We're hoping that we'll get awarded the balance of it and can continue the project.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Patton?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mayor.
the emergency clause is also requested on this, if we could pass it with that, because they'd like it returned to them by June 1st.
Okay.
Move to approve a modified grant with the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. 2111, Ohio Criminal Justice Service COVID-19 reimbursement for the police department. Chief?
Here.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't
Chief,
see-
you cock up. For some reason, your mic's on, but we can't hear you.
I don't think the chief's remote.
But he's on. The chief's on.
Chief's on? Oh, okay, go ahead, chief.
He's just got to click his button. I think you just got to click some other button to say initiate audio.
Check your check your function keys, Chief, see if you can see that you have a mic off.
No. This happened before. There's one button somewhere that you didn't hit.
Uh-oh, he's getting the instruction manual out.
He's getting his headphones.
Oh, he might have his headphones on.
No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
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 I walked over here quickly.
Oh, we just
No.
lost you.
Oh, we can't hear you now.
We just lost you. We lost you. Whatever you did, you were good.
Okay, I know you can hear me now.
Oh, yeah, you're good
Yes.
now.
Okay. As you said, this is the Ohio Criminal Justice Services. They're offering reimbursement for COVID-19 costs for police departments. We're requesting $50,725.43 in various equipment and time for personnel. And over time, we're requesting permission to apply for this grant and acceptance upon award.
Thank you. Now, do you have to submit all documented costs? Is that, or can you add to it later on if there's more costs associated with it?
Yeah, it's a rolling grant, so we can apply again for additional costs if we incur any in the future.
Any questions for the chief? Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
And this does not need the emergency clause, so we don't have to ask for that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Chief. 2112, accepting a grant for Ohio Body Armor Program for the Municipal Court. I guess this is, Mayor, do you know about this or?
Cindy's here, sir.
Oh, she is?
Yes,
Good
sir.
evening, Council. How are you?
Oh, there you are, Cindy.
Hi.
Okay.
The municipal court went ahead and applied for the body armor through the Ohio law enforcement body. We received or are authorized to spend $4,272. We're asking council to go ahead and approve this grant so we can go ahead and buy 5 of the body armors for our bailiffs.
Okay. Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Cindy. 2113, accept a donation of a hand sanitizer from Spray Products. Either the mayor or Kimberly?
Nina.
Get on and I'm going to finish my.
Hello. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. President. This request is to accept a donation of hand sanitizer from Spray Products valued at $1,560. Earlier in the COVID pandemic, the company converted a portion of their operation to make the hand sanitizer, and they wanted to help the city out. The donation consists of 180 8.5 ounce either spray or pour format cans of hand sanitizer. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2114, a memo of understanding with Teamsters Local 436. Mayor Hamwell?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a request to authorize the council to ask the council to authorize me to sign a memorandum of understanding. We passed the Teamsters contract earlier this year, and in their contract, it had the premium healthcare contribution premiums increasing on February 1st, but the police contracts and our non-union employees all had a start date of April 1st, and out of fairness to the Teamsters, we felt, as well as it's easier for council to, or for finance to have them all on the same day. So this simply is a memo. The Teamsters are fine with it, changing the date from February 1st to April 1st to align all of our employees the same. And the emergency clause is requested because the longer we wait, the more back pay the finance department's going to have to process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay.
Move to approve.
Second?
I'm sorry, with the emergency clause.
Oh, my second includes emergency clause. Sorry, Jim.
Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2115 expenditure for Littman Inc. for lights for South Elmwood Bridge. Is this Patrick?
Yes. You may remember not too long, I think it was last month, council already approved, I think it was 16,000 some change for lights at Elmwood Bridge. Problem is we presented those to the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio and the Wheeling and Lake Erie, and they rejected our proposed light. The problem is in the southbound direction, the height of the light, in their opinion, interferes with the flashing lights and gates that are at the crossing there on South Elmwood, just immediately adjacent to our bridge. And they felt that caused a safety problem that they weren't comfortable with, so they basically rejected it. Told us we needed to find a light that was less than 4 foot tall. So we're proposing, we found another light at Main Street, Medina. Actually, Service Director Piccoli found this. So this is what we're submitting. We did get a $1,500 credit, so it's less cost to us, but we wanted to go through council again just to make sure you were comfortable with this light.
Question I have is how much light will this emit?
It's not a street light. It's not designed to light up pavement. It does have an internal light. It's going to be more decorative than anything, honestly.
And it's $14,000? For how many?
There's two, and most of that cost, it is $14,000 for the entire project. We have the electrical conduits built into the bridge, so they're already there, but there's quite a cost to get the power service from Ohio Edison and bring it to that location. So there's power service and two lights make up the $14,000 cost.
Is that council? I mean, is this something that we could hold off on, or does everybody feel strongly we should do it now?
I have a question, Patrick. You say it won't illuminate the roadway itself, but it will illuminate the walkway, correct?
Yeah, it does provide light. It's just not a standard street light. So it will help illuminate it. It's just not an overhead type of light. And just to clarify, this cost is covered through the grant. I believe the grant will pay 63%. I might be off a little bit, but it is grant eligible.
Yeah. And John, go ahead.
So, where does the 3'6" start? At the street level or on the handrail of the bridge?
There's built into the bridge abutments, or not abutments, but the sidewalls. There is a little concrete pier that's part of the structure itself that is 2 foot higher than the roadway, and this will be placed on top of that pier.
So that makes them about 5 feet high. Is that right, Patrick?
Correct. That'd be 5'6" from the roadway surface.
You know, I think it was the lighting. That lighting, I think, was kind of an integral part of the idea that we had when designing that bridge. I'd like, particularly considering portions paid by the grant, I'd like to see us go forward with that.
And I was going to say, John, I know that Pat and Nino have been keeping me posted on this because it's in Ward 4, and they did share with me the options, and there was really nothing that looked. There wasn't a light pole that would look well in this area. So this was a good compromise. And of all the samples that they shared with me, I think we all felt this was the best option.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Jim?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2116 Job Creation Grant, Miller Plating LLC. Mrs. Marshall?
Thank you, Mr. President. This request is for the mayor to enter into a job creation grant agreement with Miller Plating LLC for the purpose of establishing a new business located at 940 Lafayette Road. Miller Plating will have an investment in this facility of approximately $617,000, and they have committed to creating 35 new full-time positions with new payroll of $1,140,000 over the next 3 years. The agreement will provide Miller Plating LLC with a grant up to 40% of new payroll taxes to the city of Medina for 4 years. And over that 4-year period, the grants would total $22,800. That's if they just meet that minimum qualification. If they exceed that, we allow 25% overage. So the most we would pay out would be $28,500. Since we submitted the request, the law director has reviewed and approved the draft agreement. So we respectfully request approval. And as a reminder to council and the public, the job creation grants are paid from non-income tax generated revenues. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
Just kind of, Kimberly, is this the Medina Plating location, the former Medina Plating?
It is the former facility, but it's a completely separate company.
But that building is where they're going to set up.
Yeah, the 940 Lafayette building.
Thank you.
Which was the Medina Plating Plant 1.
Okay, any other questions?
Not a question, but just to let everyone know, Councilman Heffinger's internet went out, but he's going to jump back on the meeting in a few minutes when he's reconnected.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2117 Job Creation Grant for Carlisle Brake and Friction, Inc. Mrs. Marshall?
Thank you, Mr. President. This request is for the mayor to enter into a job creation grant agreement with Carlisle Brake and Friction for the purposes of consolidating a portion of their headquarter operation from Solon to Medina. However, this morning we did receive some amendments to the application. So originally they were going to have 54 employees transferred to Medina. It has now been reduced to 48. And the payroll is changing from a little over 6 million to 5,558,000. So at this time, what we'd like to do is go ahead and amend the grant agreement and bring it back to council in 2 weeks at the next finance committee meeting. There were no other changes to the agreement itself, and the law director did review the draft prior to this meeting. So we'll bring it back to you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Kimberly?
Mr. President.
Mr. Simpson?
Yeah, the only question I have is this movement of employees from Solon and their operations from Solon to Medina. Is this going to interfere at all with the amount of time that their operations per day or per week will? It wasn't it Carlisle's that was causing some concern with the residents just east of them?
So this is an office renovation project. So they're not actually doing a physical addition to the facility. So all of the work will be done inside their existing office area, and then inside on the plant manufacturing floor, they're building a mezzanine to that will have offices for their quality assurance and engineering type employees.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Yes.
Mr. Rose?
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Marshall, the reason for them reducing the amount of people they're bringing into town, did they share that with you?
No, they did not. The CFO, who have not met yet, sent me the email this morning. So I'm just wondering if maybe they reevaluated the need, because they are keeping a portion of the employees in Solon. So maybe they reevaluated that. The other change in this was the project timeline changed from to be completed in August is now been moved out to October 2020.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other
Mr.
comments?
President,
Mayor?
thank you. So the council president, Kimberly, and I, and Bethany, and Ron Pato from the bank are on the review committee for these job creation grants. The president of Carlisle Brake and Friction is Ted Messmer. And when he came to talk about this, this is actually their corporate headquarters. This is a global company that does worldwide products. And this is quite a win for Medina, for them to bring these jobs and this payroll here. And when we asked the president if they were going to close the operations in Solon and bring everybody here, he said he didn't believe, at least currently, that they have the room for that. But he was so pleased with the way the city of Medina does business that any operations that they can bring to the city of Medina, they would bring to Medina. And just for a little history, Carlisle Brake and Friction is the one the city was in competition with Oklahoma and Texas. They were going to close one of those three plants. And after we made our pitch to them, they closed the Oklahoma plant, brought the operations here, and now this is a further investment in Medina. And I just thought it was important that all the council hear that.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor.
Any other questions? All right, Kimberly, we'll await you on the next 2 weeks on that one. 2118 MCRC temporary age restriction change. Mr. Wright, is he there?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. So the age restriction of 16 and older that we're requesting to enforce administratively is for several reasons, and we are following suit of a lot of local facilities, including the YMCA. One of the reasons is that there will not be anything a child at this age in the facility can do. We're going to have the basketball courts closed, there will be no swimming because the leisure pool is going to be closed. So neither one of them is going to be open in the first phase. Second is that we have to police the amount of people in the building, and kids under 16 will make that even harder to enforce social distancing rules, the occupancy limits, and cleaning procedures. So the health department agreed that this was a good way to start out and to do this in the first phase. So it's not a social hangout for the younger kids. To help alleviate some of the concerns parents will have of their child not being able to use their memberships in this first phase, because as the first 2 weeks we open, we're actually going to be members only. We are extending all memberships for 3.5 months, just so they're aware. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wright. A question for you. If we make this policy modification to only people 16 and older, how does it terminate?
So after 2 weeks, first phase, we're going 2 weeks to a month at the most. Once we figure out, it's okay to open it up and let more people in than the 100 we have set the limit to, we'll rescind the 16 and older.
I guess my question to you is, what has to be in the legislation to authorize you to be able to do that?
Well, so it's not an ordinance. This is just administratively that we enforce the age restrictions.
I got you. So you're just giving us information so we don't have to vote on anything.
Exactly.
Got you. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Wright? Okay, thank you. 2119, discussion opening of municipal pool. That would be Mr. Wright again.
Thank you, Mr. President. That'll be also Jansen Worley too. But I'll start off. So the discussion we really need to have tonight regarding the pool is whether, we decide that this is a service or still under our enterprise fund, which requires us to have revenues meet expenses. Ideally, when talking about the rec center itself, we know, Keith Durham predicted that we're going to be down about 1.2 million by the end of the year, which means we use $1.2 million of carry forward. With this pool, without being able to charge for memberships, because we have to set a limitation on the pool of 51, we will not be able to make the funds enough to cover the expenses. Ideally, we need $1,000 a day to cover in revenues, and at the most, if we split it into 2 4-hour shifts at $5 a person and setting the limit at 50 people per shift, that's still only $500 of the $1,000 it would require to make up the expenses. So it's something we really need to decide. Is it something we're going to run and know that we're going to lose money on it? It'll, at the best case scenario, we still lose $20,000. Worst case scenario, we could lose 50. And, that's a lot of money for the rec center when it comes to already using carry forward because of the COVID, what has happened over the last few months. So just to talk about that, like I said, this doesn't even include the idea of what, the Parks Department, we have to get everything ready. Lifeguard situation, because right now we have a total of 37 lifeguards returning. That's barely enough to run both pools once we open them both back up, and doesn't include the outdoor pool. So it's going to be tight. So that's all. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I don't know if you were going to talk about the survey or not too. Jansen had a survey. He had reported 80 respondents. Well, yeah, out of 81 respondents. The ones that did have pools, 64% said they are not going to open this summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Worley?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the operational changes that would need to take place at the pool to enforce social distancing. We'd have to remove a good portion of the lounge chairs. They would have to be sanitized on a regular schedule. We would also need to split the day in half. So if you came for the first part of the day from 11 to 3, you would be required to leave while we sanitized and clean everything. And then there'd be a second shift of people, as Mike said, 51, that could come in. And to put that 51 number in perspective, it might seem like a lot, but some of the head counts that the lifeguards do on an hourly basis during the summer exceed over 130 people on a nice day. So there'll be some challenges there. There'll be some people that will get turned away. But it's a decision that we need to make. Do we want to try and do this, or completely rule it out for the year? Right now, we're about 3 weeks once a decision is made to get the pool up and running. It gives us about a week to clean and unwinterize the pool, clean the facilities, get the restrooms up and running and the concession stand. And then it takes about 2 weeks to bring the water up to temperature from 50 degrees, close to 80 for our swimmers. So realistically, if we were to set a date, Mike and I have talked, we're probably beginning of July once a decision is made. But we did want to talk about it. There are a number of communities that are not opening splash pads at all either, as they are an outdoor water park, and the state has not allowed those to open yet, especially with playgrounds being closed. So if we are going to have an aquatic amenity, we have to weigh the decision. It's probably better to have a controlled environment at the pool for the remainder of the summer, but we wanted to open it up for discussion.
Thank you. Any comments? Yes, Ms. Hickline.
Thank you, Mr. President. Has anybody talked to the health commissioner to get her opinion on any of this? Because you said for the rec center you had talked with her, but is there any consensus from our health department about opening the outdoor pool? Because we're not opening the outdoor one at the rec center. So.
Right. So we will open. I'm sorry, Mike. Right. So we will open both pools at the rec center eventually. The first pool is going to be the complex and the leisure pool. In regards to the health commissioner, the health Laney came out. We talked with her. She did say the restrictions for the outdoor pool, same as ours. We would have to clean the showers every use. After every use, we'd have to disinfect showers if they're used. We would have to clean every 2 hours. And with the every 4 hour shutdown, it'd be a large cleaning in between the 2 4 hour shutdowns too. Plus we'd have to put up windows, barriers on the concession stand and front window. And of course for the lifeguards, because the restrooms are the lifeguard office. So to enter into the restrooms in the bathhouse, you have to go by the lifeguards, and we'd have to put up barriers for them also.
Will this require any extra employees to take care of the sanitation? Would that be the responsibility of the lifeguard or whoever's working the concession stand?
So we legally can't assign a guard to do anything but guard. Once they're on a 15 break, then we can request them to do other things. That's what the rec center is going to do. We're going to have half-hour shifts, and 15 minutes of the half hour will be to walk into the restrooms and sanitize and help out with custodial services.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't want to be the negative person here, but I guess a question for Mr. Huber, with the lifeguards and pools and stuff, do we expose ourselves at all if some of the lifeguards for some reason have to do CPR on somebody? And the worst case scenario, they were sick and got somebody else sick? I mean, I guess maybe it's too new. I don't know.
I'm not really sure that I know the exact answer to that. This whole issue is new. We have good statutory sovereign immunity defenses, and there's also Good Samaritan defense to trying to help somebody when you're a lifeguard. But whether that would completely shield us from a claim, I couldn't give you a definite answer at this point.
Thank you. I guess my personal opinion is for the council members is that since we're having the two pools open and inside possibly the rec center, the cost is far exceeds the benefit that you may get from the outside pool, it sounds like. And I don't know if we can take the risk of losing, up to $50,000, though maybe 20. I don't know how we justify that. That's just my opinion.
Mr. President.
Mr. Rose?
Thank you. Looking at last year's, we lost almost $1,000 last year on the pool, and that was a fully operational year with some special parties and things like that there. I'm in agreement with you for strictly from a financial standpoint, since we do have other pools available for the students to use or the children to use during this obviously far from normal year. I think we'd err on the side of caution would be the right way to go this year, and then reopen it full blast next year if the situation allows.
Thank you. Mr. Simpson?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mike and Jansen, the restrictions from the state are changing on a daily basis. If we anticipate, and I don't have my crystal ball out, but for some reason within the next month, right now it is still the end of May, and we still, within the next month, there may be restrictions lifted that would enable us to open both the indoor pools and outdoor pools. And with your 3 weeks of preparation, is it a possibility if the restrictions are lifted that we could move back into thinking about reopening the pool for the end of the season?
Mr. Simpson, yes, absolutely. If our issues are lifeguarding, so even the lifeguard classing, the classes that are required to train a lifeguard are being held right now from Red Cross. They will not let us run any lifeguard training because they're changing the way that rescues are performed. You were asking about the masks earlier. If they were wearing masks, the guards legally, if they're on a stand and it's 95 degrees, can take the mask off, but they're supposed to wear them. But in the event of a rescue, they're training them to even turn their head when they're pulling them out of the pool now. So it is up in the air about lifeguards and whether or not we're going to have enough to run it. But we definitely could try. If we seen the restrictions were lifted and knew we could have more people in the pool than 50, of course that would increase revenues and make it closer to it's still a money loss because we can't do the memberships. The memberships alone were $20,000, but on a day pass rate like that, if we could limit it and have more people than 50, if it went to even 75 or 100, we probably could open the pool.
And my other comment would be, even if the decision's made not to open the outdoor pool, for the patrons of the rec center that are going to be using the workout facility, and when the indoor pools start to open, I can't remember which one asked about the liability of doing CPR. You guys are always in good contact with the Cleveland Clinic and Medina Hospital, and I'm pretty sure your rescue packets include pocket masks now, but there's also called BMVs, bag valve, mask valves, that also could protect not only the victim, but the employee performing the CPR. Nobody's should be in the public anyhow for your employees doing mouth to mouth, no matter how critical the situation is. But there is what the police department and fire departments have in their rescue kits is the pocket masks, which have one-way valves. So I think that they're going to be pretty well protected there. Thank you.
And we do also use those too. And we are going to require a COVID waiver, which the law department approved last week, a COVID waiver for all the patrons coming in to sign.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add one thing?
Sure, Mr. Worley.
I did want to let you know, Mr. Simpson, we do intend on opening the splash pads if the restrictions are lifted, especially with the playgrounds. We can open those up within a couple days. So that's still out there.
Good. Thank you very much.
Mr. Lamb?
Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said that it was 50 people in the morning and 50 people in the afternoon if you opened the pool. Is that correct?
Correct. So 100 total times $5 a visit would be $500 out of a $1,000 expense day.
And you also said that on a great day, a good day last year, where the weather was good, sometimes the count was 150 people swimming in a day.
Right, 130.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
130. So what was an average day last year?
Per hour, I'm sorry. Average. See, hold on a second. I probably have that here. Christy put together a whole report for it. So
152.
Yep. Yeah, she's right. Paul, because she gave Paula one of these sheets last week, or average daily attendance was 152, right?
Okay, so if you had all the protocols in place that you needed to have, and you had 50 people in the morning and 50 people in the afternoon, you would have 2/3 of the attendance that you had last year on average, right?
Without memberships and just day passes. You have to remember the memberships were 20,000 of the revenues last year.
Right. Without day passes.
Correct.
The season clearly will be a short season. If you started now to get the pool ready, I think, as you said, it'd be July probably before it's ready to go.
Correct, probably.
Is that correct?
Yes. So the 5th of July.
So I on one hand, you know, if you look at particularly younger, you know, you look at right, and then we close around Memorial Day,
Labor Day.
Yesterday was Memorial Day.
Well, we close usually when schools start or restrict our hours after school starts because the attendance drops to 0.
Labor Day. Yeah, excuse me. Yeah. Well, you know how it is when.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
You know, I really think Denny's suggestion, you know, and I think, you know, what you talked about already, I think Denny's suggestion that if the restrictions are lifted, it would be great if we could at some point, if the restrictions would be lifted at some point, as Denny suggested, I think that would be a good option, you know, go forward planning on not opening the pool. But see how the restrictions go as summer goes on.
Right. Yes, Mr.
Coyne. Mr. Coyne.
Oh, Mayor?
So just so council's aware, twice a week I've been, myself, the mayor of Wadsworth, the city manager for Brunswick, and the county commissioners have been having bi-weekly conference calls with the health commissioner and trying to get updates both on the numbers and what's on the horizon as far as reopening. And what's holding the state back right now pretty significantly with the playgrounds, with the splash pads, is the inability of separating, social distancing, with young children like that. And then the second thing is the sanitation of them. I tried to encourage our local health commissioner, who is also trying to encourage the state health commissioner, as well as the governor's office, that this should not be put on the government as a responsibility, that the parents need to accept some responsibility if they're going to take their child to the playground or take their child to the splash pad, that they have wipes to disinfect their hands, that they have lotions to disinfect their hands. I even offered that if the city had to put some of the dispensers there and put signs on them restricting that the use of the playground or the use of the facility is contingent upon them wiping it down both before and after for their safety as well as everybody else's safety. So the state is continuing to work on these things, but the social distancing in a pool, whether you're on the deck or in the water, is what's severely hindering the volume of people that we can have, and therefore the resources that will be generated as a result of it. It's not that the pool can't be opened, but the pool will be open at a substantial loss, as Mike and Jansen already articulated.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Heffinger?
I was just going to say we can only go by the information we currently have, and currently it says that we can't have that many people there. We're going to lose money. So I'm with Mr. Simpson here and saying that, maybe we push this back to the next council meeting and bring this up again for debate and see if there's any new information. I don't know that I'm okay with just opening it up and losing that kind of money when we're talking about already cutting budgets across the board for 10%. We just need to watch that, I think.
Thank you. And I think everybody agrees with that. And maybe either Mr. Worley or Mr. Wright, keep us informed on what you're hearing and what other people are doing with their pools. And at some point, it may just be not possible to open a pool up after a certain date, just because even to get it ready may cost more than you're even, if it's open up for 2 weeks, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to open it up for 2 weeks. But Mr. Shields?
I was going to say, Mr. Coyne, obviously there were several of us on council that worked hard to get that pool renovated and reopened. So I'm disappointed and I'm sad that it's not going to be open at this time, but I also understand the financial reality of it and just the timing here and the safety. When you add all those things together, I think we're making the best choice for now. As sad as that is, and I'm disappointed that a lot of children won't be able to use it or have anywhere else to go for swimming, but I understand and support the administration's recommendation here to keep it closed for now.
Okay, thank you.
I agree, Jim.
Anybody else have any comments? All right, Mr. Wright, Mr. Worley, thanks a lot. Just keep us informed. And right now, the pool will be closed.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. 2120, expenditure of color renovation at Uptown Park. Mr. Worley?
Thank you, Mr. President. So you may have noticed driving through town, the gazebo is currently under renovation. We obtained a purchase order back in 2019 in the amount of $15,000 to secure a contractor for this spring. The project was delayed at least 3 weeks. They are working on it now. In the quote that I included with the request, there was a time and material charge for carpentry because at the time of the quote, it was undetermined as to if any of the wood was going to need to be replaced. We found out beginning of last week that there is a pretty substantial amount of deteriorating wood that does need replaced. So I've put a request in for a 2020 PO in the amount of $5,000 to cover that, which will make the total project not to exceed $20,000, which is why it's here this evening.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Worley?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2121 vehicle donation to Medina County Career Center for the Police Department. Chief Kinney?
Thank you, Mr. President. We're requesting permission to donate a 2013 Ford Explorer. It's the oldest vehicle in our fleet that we need to get rid of. We typically don't draw a lot of money at auction, the city auction. Our used vehicles don't really draw that much money. We'd like to donate it to the criminal justice program at the Career Center, twofold. One, the auto body and the auto mechanic students will get to update the car, do any of the mechanical work that's needed, so they'll get practice doing that. And also the criminal justice students will be able to use that as a tool to further their education. It should be noted that we've benefited in the past from students and graduates from the criminal justice program here in the area. Our current K-9 officer graduated from a vocational criminal justice program as well.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief?
Mr. Coyne?
Mr. Shields?
Just a comment. I wanted to thank the chief for coming up with this idea. I'm always very proud when I see our fire truck out there and the students using that. So I'm glad that the students are now going to get to use one of our police cars as well. So thank you, chief, for arranging this.
Well,
Any other questions or comments?
Nope.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 172122 Lindenwood Lake Dam draft legislation. Is this Mr. Patton?
I guess so. As you know, we have bid and awarded the project to renovate and rebuild the Lindenwood Lake Dam. As part of that process, because it's council's intention to pay for those repairs through an assessment process, our law director, Mr. Huber, recommended that council needs to pass this resolution, which in essence informs the property owners, the folks that live on the lake, that they must repair the dam. It gives them a time frame to do that, and if they don't, then the city can come in, do the repairs, and then assess the owners after the fact.
Thank you. Mr. Durham, you sent an email out regarding the process by which this will be assessed. And it's my understanding that it'll be a little different. There'll be an opportunity to pay it, and those who don't pay it then will be assessed?
Right. We contacted the county auditor's office about this, and in order to kind of secure our funding, we will certify the project as a special assessment project. But then each year before we send the assessment to the county auditor's office, we'll give these property owners an opportunity to pay. If they pay the city directly, they'll avoid the county's charges, because when the county collects it, they charge an extra percentage. I believe it was 3%. So we'll send them an invoice and give them 45 days, something like that, to pay. And then if they don't, we'll go ahead and put it on the property taxes and collect it that way.
My only question I had regarding this is I was a little concerned with the information regarding if the property is sold, that it may not bind the new property owner. Is there a way we could just file like an affidavit of facts on each of the properties saying that there's an assessment that'll be done every year?
Yeah, that's what they suggested, that we go ahead and certify the project. So it would be as if we were going to do the assessment each year. But we would treat that as the backup, so that we would invoice it. And if they don't pay, we go ahead and do the assessment. But it will be on the property. So if you, Mr. Coyne, were the owner, you sold it to me, I would take over that responsibility.
Okay, yeah, I was just concerned. I didn't understand some of the comments from the county, how that would work if they were kind of, when a title company does a search on a sale, if they miss it, does that mean the new property owner has to pay it? And it sounds like the answer is yes. So that's good.
That's my understanding.
Okay. Any questions?
Mr. President?
Mr. Rose?
Is this the time where we discuss the interest rates and the like on what will be charged on the assessment, or is that a future legislation?
Yeah. No, I think this is part of the legislation. So the way it's written is that it's the bond rate, I believe, and Keith gave an email out of what that bond rate currently is, which was quite low. So, Keith, if you want to give a little update on that.
Right. I contacted the underwriter after last meeting. You asked me to do that, and they gave me a range. 2.25 was right in the middle of the range. So that's what I figured the amortization table at, was at 2.25%. And then we'll have to finalize that based on what the final project amount is, but 2.25.
That's not bad, considering what if they would go to a bank, what they would have to pay. Very good. Thank you, Keith.
And I think we also agreed it's going to be a 20-year payback period, and at 2.25 to try to get the payments as low as possible. But it sounds like, you know, if they want to pay it up front and avoid the 3% charge, they can, which is somewhat helpful from the county. And, you know, hopefully a lot of them will take advantage of that. So, all right, Mr. Huber, do you need anything else from us on that? Or are we just going to vote to approve the legislation? Nothing, Mr. Huber? We didn't hear you.
Sorry, Mr. Coyne. Mr. Huber's sitting next to me, and he did say it was fine to go ahead and make a motion to pass it out of finance today.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. The last item, just to give you an update, I think everybody received an email from Kathy Patton today regarding the revised courthouse plans from the county and the city municipal court. Take a look at those. The numbers will be coming hopefully later this week, early next week. And once we get those numbers, we could probably have another meeting to discuss them. But the plans have been changed dramatically from the previous plans. The square footage has been reduced to a combined about 26,098 square feet, which includes the share of the shared space with the county, and also the size of the court is about 21,000 odd square feet with respect to the municipal court. Now, our percentage share of the expenses going forward have been reduced based upon the latest plans from 25% to 20%, which is pretty good. And I think the layout, the judge is looking at the layout together with his people in the court, and Nancy's looking at it. So once they go through it and look at it, I think we'll be ready to have a meeting. But in order to have an effective meeting, we need to put the Gilbane's cost estimate associated with it so we can understand what it means. Because remember, there's a cost estimate with respect to the construction, and there's some soft cost, demolition cost, and I think there's going to be an environmental asbestos abatement cost that'll be included in it. But hopefully, with the only good thing about the coming out of this economy is that maybe construction costs will start going down, which it could be a benefit. And that can only aid us, because I don't think this will be bid out, if it is bid out, until 2021. So there's still probably 6 more months or longer before it goes to bid, which definitely could be an impact in the industry of, you know, who's doing projects and how aggressive the contractors will be when they bid the project. So once we get those numbers together, everybody can look at it, generate your questions. We'll have another meeting with the judge and the other members of the court and Nancy to make a determination of, do we like it? What don't we like? Are we on the right path? You know, where do we stand? I think that's very important. And now we're getting closer and closer to the final design. As far as the interior is concerned, we would be able to make that decision. The exterior, of course, is still up in the air, depending on what the public wants, is my understanding. And we would have input into that, of course, as far as with the exterior of the building, both facing the square and around the building, I guess, to make sure that it matches with the square. Mayor, did I leave anything out?
The only other thing I was going to add, Mr. Coyne, was they have copies of the most recent plans now?
Correct.
Okay. So one thing you may notice if you've not had a chance to spend much time with it, but the advantage that we see is that the courtrooms, there's 3 hearing rooms, 1 jury, 2 non-jury, but they are all in the new facility, whereas before all of the municipal operations were in the 1841. So with this new configuration, the courtrooms, the judges' offices, the bailiffs have been moved over into the new building on the same floor as the clerk's office and probation, which is still housed in the 1841. So this latest design has met a lot of what we've asked them to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments on that? All right, hearing none, the Finance Committee meeting is adjourned, and we'll start the council meeting in 20 minutes.